Alright, so fresh 9. Jesus, excuse me. As you can see, or not see, I can't tell, we have an oil leak. So this car is the car I just finished a couple of weeks ago. It has, I don't know, 200 miles or so on the brand new engine, fresh tranny, all the parts, and it developed an oil leak pretty quick after I finished it. I just want to get some miles on it, some braking miles, make sure everything's running good. It's not a crazy oil leak, but it's an oil leak nonetheless on a brand new car or a brand new engine. So I think I may have made a mistake. I did not remove the rear main seal cover to see if Mitsubishi seals them or not with 3-bond from factory on an OEM long block. So I'm assuming that's the issue. I already pulled the oil pan off and resealed it really well. That didn't change anything, so I'm assuming that I screwed up the rear main putting it in, or the rear main seal cover doesn't get sealed from factory. Either way, my mistake. So now I'm getting ready to yank the transmission out and check that. Garage update. I put in a mini split. If you live in a hotter climate like Las Vegas, like today, it's probably mid-90s. Put in the mini split yesterday and it freaking kicks butt. It's 78 degrees in my garage right now, which is unheard of during the summer in Vegas. This is going to be a game changer for people's cars that I'm working on for other people, and my own cars, which obviously we have a lot going on with my own cars right now. So I'm going to do a little bit of recording on how I personally pull transmissions out of these cars. Several different ways to go about it. Some people drop the subframe, some people pull out both axles. There's a lot of little things that I do that make it take way less time to yank the transmissions out of these cars. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. Firstly, we're gonna disconnect the battery, get it up on the lift, and drain the transmission fluid out of it, and we'll go from there. So yeah, let's get the battery undone and we'll get started. All right, battery disconnected. So next, I'm going to go ahead and throw it up on the lift, yank the tires out. I'll show you which axle I remove and my specific process to getting this transmission out. Alright, so a couple of things that I removed. I removed the intake and the cold side, just to the throttle body. I don't take these clips off of, add some light here, I don't take these clips off of the shifter cable bracket. I take the bracket itself off. So I remove the 12s, there's two 12s that hold it on, and I remove the clips that hold the brackets to the the cables to the transmission, and this is just free hanging here. I'll pull it out of the way when I'm ready to take the transmission off completely. And then you don't have to take the transmission harness off either. You just have to unplug this main plug that goes into the car. You can leave the transmission harness on the car itself. I just have to clip this. Obviously this loom is a little bit different. Sorry about that, got cut off. So this plug and the plug over here, which is the speed sensor, it's kind of down there in the back, you can barely see it, but will they'll stay on the car. So you go ahead and remove this plug. It's really hard to do one-handed without breaking stuff. Alright, so that is unplugged. The rest can actually stay on the car. Alright, so quick update at the step that we're at. Axle pulling. So, you don't need to take any of the suspension off, end links or anything like that. You just need to pull the ball joint, move the brake and hub and whatnot out of the way. This is the driver side axle. So the driver side axle, the stub end goes all the way through into the transfer case. That one needs to come out when you're pulling the transmission. The passenger side axle can stay in the car. It needs to be hung freely because the transfer case needs to move over, but it doesn't actually need to come out of the car. You can leave the whole axle in, or to make it easier on moving the transfer case around, you can pull that axle out, but the stub end can stay in there. And then a little trick that I've learned over the years of messing with these transmissions. So this is the one that goes all the way through into the transfer case. This is threaded, so this is the side that sticks out of the transmission side. The tip of it is threaded, so if you get a bolt that fits in there, you can hook your slide hammer to this portion of the stub end and just yank it out with a slide hammer. Way easier than trying to use a pry bar or something like that. And then to get the axle off of the stub end, sometimes it'll come out together. This is a dust shield right here. Don't pry right there. Pry on the axle portion. I don't actually know what this portion is called, but pry on this. This is an OEM axle, so AutoZones I believe are black, this portion. But you need to pry on this side, not on here. Common mistake, and it will tear up that dust boot. Alright, so getting pretty close now. On the transmission, there's one underneath the water neck, there's another one right behind and underneath the water neck, and then there's one that goes into the transfer case. And then there's one, there's 3 transfer case bolts up top. There's one right there, and then there's one right next to it, and then there's one a little ways to the left. It's a little bit easier to get to from the bottom. And there's also a bolt for the transmission. It's through the block into the transmission. It's behind the transfer case. It's kind of a pain to get to, but you have to have the transfer case off to get to it. A lot of people don't realize that one's there, and they start prying these things apart and destroy the bell housings. Another thing too, you don't have to unbolt the slave cylinder or take the slave line off of the slave cylinder. You just unbolt it from the transmission. And then inside there's a wave clip. You pull the, well, you kind of put get a video of it, but you put a flat tip in between the wave clip and the throwout bearing, pull the clutch fork backwards, and then twist the flat tip at the same time as you release the clutch fork, and the throwout bearing will release from the wave clip. So I'll try to get a video of that as we're doing it. Alright, so we are underneath the car. Transfer case pulled out. Well, that'll work. That is the bolt that is a pain in the butt. Transfer case has to be pulled out to get to it. And then, let's see. Let me turn my flash on 1 second. So, we need to get the flat tip between the throwout bearing right there and the wave clip. Now let's see if I can show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so it's kind of hard to tell. The flat tip goes on that side of the wave clip. You can see it's kind of in there. And then you grab the clutch fork and you pull it to where it pinches the flat tip in there. Once you pinch the flat tip, you can kind of twist the flat tip and release the clutch fork at the same time, and it should release the throwout bearing. So let's see if I can do this while I'm recording. That easy. See, now the clutch fork is all the way out, and the release, or the release bearing, throwout bearing, whatever you want to call it, is released. Alright, got the trans out, clutch off. Turns out anyways, turns out Mitsubishi does not put sealant on the main cover, so that's why we had an oil leak, because there was no cover. But from the point where I showed you guys how to release the throwout bearing and that little super secret squirrel bolt on the back side, the rest of it's pretty straightforward. To get the transmission off, it comes off pretty easily. But yeah, we're gonna get that thing cleaned up, sealed up, get this transmission back on here, and pray we don't have any more oil leaks, because that would be dope, because I want to drive this car. But yeah, anyways, quick little transmission removal tutorial, and the next one's gonna be a water pump. Yay.